Welcome to Back to the Futures, the official podcast of the Futures Collegiate Baseball League, presented by ChangeUp. I'm Owen Shadrick, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Johnny Maffey. Johnny, this weekend starts 4 great weekends of baseball on NESN for the Futures League, and we had play-by-play announcer Donny Porcaro to start it off.
Yep, we're super busy right now. The All-Star selections were announced yesterday, and NESN, Saturday, noon, in Worcester. Not that you care at home because you're going to be watching. Check your local listings right here. It's super easy on the phone. You just go to the tab at NESN.com. You can find where you need to watch, because I know you don't know where NESN is because you're watching Blue Frame Futures games every night.
Yeah, we're extremely excited and honored to have our games on NESN, and it's going to be a great week of Futures League baseball. The draft's coming up, the All-Stars games coming up, and this month full of NESN games. It's great for the league.
Yeah, so this Saturday, it'll be Donny Porcaro, who is our guest today, in the booth. He'll be doing the play-by-play for all 4 games. Colin Quinn from the Pittsfield Suns will be joining him, and I will, weird brag, be on the sidelines with another Worcester Bravehearts press box guy, Paul Lambert, who is a stud as well. He knows what he's doing. Donny knows what he's doing, and this is a great interview with Donny.
Yeah, we're extremely excited for you all to hear this interview with Donny. He talks about NESN, talks about the Bravehearts, and we're going to stop talking and get you to the interview. So without further ado, we present our interview with Don Porcaro.
Let's roll. We'll see you on NESN.
At this time, we are honored to be joined by our next guest, who has been a jack of all trades in the press box at Hanover Insurance Park and will be the play-by-play announcer for our 4 games on NESN in July. It's Don Porcaro of the Worcester Bravehearts. Donny, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Back to the Futures. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And I'm glad to be on. I know we talked about this for a while, so glad to be on and hope you guys are doing good.
Yeah, we're doing well and excited to get started here. And first question, first off, tell us what you do for the Worcester Bravehearts. I said jack of all trades in the intro, but what is your role with the Worcester Bravehearts?
Yeah, so my official title, I guess you can say, is production director, which for most sports teams kind of means a combination of the broadcast side of things, getting the broadcast rolling, producing the broadcast, along with any type of game operation stuff. So that includes the game day scripts, any of the promotions we do, sponsorship activation, stuff like that. Basically any entertainment that you see within the organization, whether that's if you're at a game and you see the in-between inning stuff, or whether you're watching it at home and you see the broadcast stuff. I've kind of been running that side of things, but because this is the Futures League and it's the Worcester Bravehearts and it's how we operate here, it's a lot more, and everyone who works in the Bravehearts department kind of does a lot more than their job entails. And that's because A, we love it. We want to be here. We're passionate about it. And B, it's because you kind of have to when you're working in, non-professional sports. So along with that, I am also a tarp puller at times, which this season has seemed like it's been my full-time job. Considering we've had to pull it like 3 times a week because the weather's been, whatever. But along with that, it's a combination of even stuff like selling tickets, selling sponsorships, and then, just doing stuff around the office, community relations events. Sometimes it means being in a mascot suit, which fortunately I haven't gotten the opportunity to do that yet this year. But I've been a handler for the mascots. So stuff like that, really just any way you can help out in the organization.
And quick follow-up here, one of your jobs that you didn't mention is you're the all-time winningest coach in Bravehearts history.
Well, winning percentage-wise, I guess you can say the all-time winningest coach. I am 1-0, although the second game was controversial because what happened was when we went down to Vermont, which is a 4-hour trip, a couple of our assistant coaches early on in the season, they couldn't make it. They had prior commitments because our coaches do other things besides coach the Worcester Bravehearts. And so early in the season, I know Alex had, he coached the Milford High School team, and there was a couple other things that they had going on. So I actually went down to Vermont as an assistant coach. And game 1, I coached first base. We won the game. And the first inning, this is probably the pride of my coaching career. I sent Sebastian Salato from first base to second base on what looked to be a single that turned into a double. So that was like the highlight of my coaching career. The second game, Alex's whatever he had, the game, I think, got rained out for the other team he was supposed to coach. So he ended up taking the trip up to Vermont, got there just in time for game time, So I was not on the field to be a first base coach, and we lost that game. So I'm not counting it. I'm counting it as 1-0. I'm undefeated in my Bravehearts coaching career. However, it's controversial, I guess you could say.
Yeah, back to your back to your off the field duties for game 2 there.
Yeah. So I didn't cover the game. I was just kind of roaming in the dugout. But then again, I didn't really have an official role. So if it's up to me, I'm not counting it. I'm 1-0. That's how I'm taking it.
We won't count it either. So you've been with the Hearts for a few years now. You've gotten exposure, obviously, on social media. You've gotten exposure on the Blue Frame broadcasts. And in the weirdest year last year of all of our lives, you got this regional experience on NESN. How awesome was that last year?
NESN was a blast. I mean, when I was 5 years old, I watched the Red Sox, obviously, as every other baseball fan in New England did. And it was Don Orsillo for me. He was the guy. He was my favorite guy. We had the same name, and it was the Red Sox broadcast in general, which were on NESN. So when I was a kid, it wasn't ESPN for me. It wasn't, TNT. It wasn't anything like that. It was NESN. And so when I was 6 years old, I think my mom got me for my birthday it was like a handheld mic, and it was like this ESPN like radio thing, basically like you're pretending to be a broadcaster. And it was like the best Christmas present or birthday present I ever got. And it was like one of the few I remember from the time I was like 6 or 7. And I still have it somewhere stored in my attic or something. And I pretended I was on NESN. I would shut down the volume. I would completely turn off the volume on the TV, and I would broadcast. Like, she loved it. And and I just kind of always dreamed on being on NESN. So when that opportunity came up last year, it was something that was really special to me, because I kind of said it, a lot of stuff did get taken away from me and a lot of others because of COVID and, job opportunities and things like that. And I'm sure we'll get into all that. But the one thing that kind of came out of that was the NESN broadcast. And that's something that I tell people all the time, regardless of where my life takes me, regardless of what I do for a living in sports, out of sports, whatever it is, I got to live out a childhood dream last year for NESN, and that continues this year. So that's definitely really awesome. And honestly, one of the highlights of not only COVID, but kind of my life, because like I said, it was kind of a childhood dream.
Well, you get to continue that highlight Saturday, obviously. You'll be calling 4 games the next 4 Saturdays. This is going to drop on Thursday, the 8th. So Saturday, the 10th will be the first one. Worcester's hosting Pittsfield. What are you looking forward to most about these games?
I think just hosting a game at Fitton Field, being in Worcester and hosting the game, I think to me is such a special thing. So I've been with the Hearts. This is my 5th year with the team. And, I've done broadcasts, and I've done broadcasts in front of a sold out crowd with 5,000 people there, which again is something I never really thought I would do. To, be able to broadcast a game in front of 5,000 people was so awesome in 2019. And then obviously COVID happened. And last year, the game that the Bravehearts had was the game that was in Campanelli Stadium with the Brockton Rocks. And because it was Massachusetts, there was no fans. So the other 2 games I did in Nashua and New Britain both had fans. The one game that there was no fans was the Bravehearts game, So I still, to this day, although I broadcasted around the league, haven't done a Bravehearts game on NESN with fans. So the fact that we're going to have a pretty big crowd on Saturday. We have the Sign Me Up contest, which is basically you bring a sign, you get a free hot dog. So there's going to be a bunch of signs in the stands. There's going to be a bunch of people loving it. I think that's what I'm most excited for, because in reality, I haven't even broadcasted a game at Fitton Field since 2019 was the last time I actually broadcasted a game, because I've been running the broadcast now. That changes tonight, actually. So my debut is actually tonight on the FCBL network. Because I kind of wanted to get, a game in or 2 before I just go straight to NESN. So I will be getting kind of like a warm-up game. We got a doubleheader, so I'll be able to get at least, 14 innings of baseball in. So hopefully that helps out a little bit. But yeah, it's going to be really exciting for just to be at Fitton Field and with the Bravehearts, a home game to broadcast out on NESN. I'm looking forward to it.
You can't just roll out of bed and go on NESN.
I mean, we'll see. It's an early game, and I have to be there pretty early. So, I mean, quite literally, I am probably rolling out of bed and being on NESN. But yeah, I figured at least get one game in before we start to roll. I remember I did a sideline interview or a post-game interview earlier on in the season when I was covering one of the road games in Nashua. And I hadn't done that in a while either. And I looked back at the interview and I was like, oh my God, I can't even post this. Like, bad. And so reminds me of when I was like a freshman in college doing this stuff. So I definitely need to get a little practice in before I just start going live on NESN.
And you talk about living out a childhood dream. You grew up in the Worcester area, and the Bravehearts have obviously been a staple of baseball in that area since their inaugural season. What have the Bravehearts meant to you in particular, especially as a kid who's grown up in the Worcester area?
I mean, to be honest, they've meant everything when it comes to sports in my career in sports. I can go through all the jobs I've had in sports besides the Bravehearts, but every single one of them kind of circle back to Worcester and circle back to the Bravehearts. Whatever it is, between my broadcasting career, between my community relations career, live events career, everything that I've done, every interview I've ever taken, a majority of the conversation is the Hearts. And the thing that's been really special to me, and the reason why I keep coming back for 5 seasons now, is because every year I've been able to do something different. I have the Bravehearts on my resume for 5 years, but I went to college in Boston, and so many of my friends in the Boston area would be like, "Hey, why don't you just spend the summer in Boston? You live out here anyways, and get an internship with somewhere in Boston. There's a bunch of teams in Boston. Obviously, the Red Sox play in Boston." And it's like, look, as much as I have the same team on my resume for 5 years, I have 5 different positions every summer. And this summer has became more of like an actual, all right, I'm in the office every single day type of role, where I started off as an intern, just as everyone else. Press box intern was the official title. And I was basically controlling a camera. It was back and forth, moving one camera from the press box. And that was basically my job for the first, I want to say, 2 days of the season. And then I got my first opportunity to broadcast the game, literally my 3rd or 4th game into the Bravehearts organization. And it's like, how many times do you get hired to be an intern where you think you're just going to be on camera, and then 3 days into your internship, you're doing a game? And that's kind of what it was. We were short a color commentator, and I said, "Hey, I'll do it. I'll jump right on it. I want to do this." They trusted me enough to say, "All right, go for it." I guess they liked me because obviously the next season I was hired full time. And the first season I got to do a lot of games, which was really cool as well. I got to do most of the weekend games. And then by the second season, I was working the broadcast basically full time. By the 3rd season, I was in charge of the broadcast, in charge of the press box, kind of running the show down there. And then last season, I moved over to the production side of things. And in 2019 or 2018, I'm sorry, I also worked for the Massachusetts Pirates, which was right around the area, doing live events, I was the MC over there. So that's when I really kind of fell in love with the live event side of things, the fans, and doing the game scripts and the promotions. And so I kind of told the Bravehearts, I was like, look, I really enjoy broadcasting. It's something that obviously it's a childhood dream, but I also really enjoy the promotion side of things. And that's something I want to get into. They said, okay, we're going to have you write the game scripts. Perfect. So I started writing the game scripts then a little bit for them, kind of filled in for Dave when needed. And then in 2019, they said, hey, if you want to get into sports, you probably want to get into the media relations side of things. So I ended up producing their souvenir programs, and then 2020 came, and it was the production side. It was the blue frame and the broadcast and working the NESN deal and stuff like that. And now this season, it's been a combination of everything, being, the production director. So every year I say it's just kind of a new thing, and I've been able to have new experiences. So that's definitely been kind of a key thing with the Hearts for me, is the fact that they give me every opportunity I ask for. If I have something new, they're kind of in the business of saying yes to a lot of the ideas, as long as I can follow through with it. So that's my biggest thing with the Hearts.
Yeah, you're definitely following through with all of it. So you've climbed through the ranks, you've gotten all this experience, you get to showcase it on your resume, on LinkedIn, wherever. How important is climbing through the ranks like this and doing all of these things, like Owen said, jack of all trades type of experience?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that I've learned in the sports industry is the fact that you have to do so much to kind of understand the different roles of each industry and to each department of each industry. So, for example, I love the promotion side of things. I love being able to kind of make the fans happy. And I think that's why it's been such a good fit with Worcester. It's because that's what they're all about, is making fans happy and having them leave the stadium smiling. And not only your fans, but your sponsors and your season ticket holders and your single game ticket holders and everything in between. And so this year with the Bravehearts, I'm kind of getting into more of the sponsorship aspect and the sponsorship activation. And when I was with the Celtics, that was a big thing too. Anything that's sponsored, whether it's the half court shootout or whether it's the t-shirt toss, everything has some type of big sponsor on it, right? So you want to make sure that those people are happy, and you want to make sure your season ticket holders are happy. So doing promotions, you kind of figure out what makes them happy, what makes them unhappy. So on that side of things, you have the community relations side of things. When I worked with the Bruins, that was my main department, was community relations. So going to different events and seeing how fans interact with players, seeing how fans interact with staff members. The 50-50 raffle was a big thing I used to do with the Celtics too, which transitioned me into my role with the Bruins. So everything that I've kind of learned going up through the ranks is the fact that everything is intertwined. If you want to be a broadcaster, you also need to know how fans react to your broadcasting skills. You need to know what gets people excited. If you want to sell tickets, you need to know sponsorships. You need to know community relations, where your main markets are, who your main markets are. With the Bravehearts in general, if we go into a bunch of colleges and high schools and we're trying to sell Bravehearts tickets, it's probably not going to go too well, because our main audience are groups and families and things like that. Do college kids and high school kids go to our games? Sure. But, when I look through Snapchat on a nightly basis, I'm not seeing a bunch of my friends at Bravehearts games. However, it's still a packed house, because it's the elementary school kids, and it's the kids who look at the Bravehearts as if they're, these big time celebrities, because in Worcester they kind of are, and they love it. The players are great. It's a lot of signing autographs, it's a lot of taking pictures and stuff like that. So you have to know your main audience. And, I'm really, really lucky with the opportunities that I've been able to get with different teams, especially before COVID, because it really puts in perspective, what you have to do to succeed in the sports industry. And it was funny because, one example I do have is the other week we were leading it was basically a Boy Scout, Girl Scout camp parade for the Bravehearts before one of the games. And they asked if I could help, run it and help out with that. I said, sure. And it was a group of, I'd say, 100 Cub Scouts. And it was pretty simple. It was a simple thing. And the reason why it was so simple is because 12 months prior, I was leading 200 kids onto the court of TD Garden. And if you're 30 seconds late, or if you miss a cue for that, you're getting yelled at by production directors for TNT and ESPN and stuff like that. So it's a lot more high stakes when there's 18,000 people in the crowd and you got $1 million sponsorships on the line, as opposed to, a pack of 50 to 100 scouts and you're leading a parade. So I'd say that's definitely kind of been the most important thing for me.
Hold on, we'll get right back to Donnie. But first,
we want to share a message from our friends at 78 Sports. Do you have kids playing baseball or softball? We all know practice time is limited, especially here in New England. Not to mention the cost of lessons and cage time can add up quickly. Save yourself time and money by giving your kids what they need to work on their game at home. Our friends at 78 Sports can help you put together the perfect at-home training setup. Whether you want to start small with just a tee and hitting net, or looking to set up a full cage with turf and a pitching machine, they have you covered. The team at 78 Sports has designed and installed hundreds of home and commercial sports training facilities, so let them help you plan the perfect setup for your space. Visit the 78 Sports website at 78sports.com. That's SEVENTY 8sports.com. For a limited time, just by mentioning Back to the Futures, you'll receive a 10% discount off your order. That's SEVENTY 8sports.com.
Now, back to Don Porcaro.
Yeah, and you talked about kind of knowing the moment and, trying to hype up the fans. One person that does that better than anybody else is your GM and boss, Dave Peterson, who has been a vital part of the success in Worcester on and off the field. What is your relationship like with him?
It's great. I mean, me and Dave are back and forth every single day in the office, bouncing ideas off of each other. And, he's a big reason, one of the main reasons, I'd say, one of the main people, influencers in my life in the sports industry that has gotten me to where I am. And I think a big part of that is because, it's lead by example. I mean, he is the definition of lead by example, where he's out picking up trash, pulling the tarp, doing everything that a lot of people don't want to do. We hosted a Legion tournament yesterday and, Legion doubleheader. And we just basically 2 Legion teams. It was Shrewsbury and Maine South. And it was pouring rain when the game was supposed to start at 5:30, and we could have canceled the game. We could have said, hey, go play somewhere else on another day. And Dave was adamant that we were going to get those games in. We had to do it because they wanted to play and we were going to do everything we could. So we pulled the tarp 15 minutes before the game, and it rains for 20 minutes and we're out rolling water off the tarp for the next hour and a half. We pull the tarp around 7:30. We start by 8 o'clock. And we have a doubleheader, which ends at midnight. And for him, that's just another day, And people ask all the time, like, hey, you're getting to the office at 8:30 in the morning, 9 o'clock. You're working till midnight. Aren't you burnt out? And it's like, yeah, but, you kind of learn from the best because Dave's been doing that for 7-8 years now, every single summer. So I think, it's lead by example because, like I said, he's always the one picking up trash, pulling the tarp, doing what you need to do. On top of that, you can't take yourself too seriously in this industry. I've worked with a lot of people who are great about that. I've worked with some people who aren't, who think that because they're hired by these big companies and because they work for big name organizations, they can just, treat it like it's like they are big time. And are you? Maybe. But, if you're working for a big organization, you still have to treat everyone with respect. You still have to treat the fans with respect. And I think a lot of my leadership skills have kind of stemmed off of what he's done because I've seen him kind of lead a staff for so many years now. So I think it's definitely helped me in that aspect as well, where, it's the creative process. And some of the funnest times of the summer are just sitting around with me, Dave, and our ticket sales guy, Nate Ganelli, director of ticket sales, and just bouncing off ideas from each other for hours. I mean, I remember there was a day right before the season where we were coming up with our music playlist, and it was just us three for 2 hours putting together a list of 100 songs that people would just dance to in the ballpark, and those are the funnest times. It's like, that's when our ideas get creative. And last week we had a mascot ejected, and that was kind of something that we came up with, a promotion where it's like, this will be really cool if we just run our old Worcester Tornadoes mascot out from the middle of center field with the Stone Cold Steve Austin song blaring, the glass shattering, stuff like that. So it's really fun. I mean, Dave has just been such a great influence over the past couple of years, and it's great work with him. I love it.
And we had him on season 1, and, you talk about not taking yourself too seriously. A famous kind of, I guess, event in Worcester Bravehearts are the Tequila Rallies during late inning games. You have been a part of a couple of those, especially one this year that I still can't believe happened. So talk about those, where it originated from, and just what the deal is.
Yeah. So in 2019, I remember I was on the call with Anthony Mazzini. Now, Maz is one of the most talented broadcasters I've ever met. And he is also someone that is very, very serious about broadcasting, and about his position. And it's funny to see, especially him, how he transitioned from being very serious to, learning to not take himself too seriously and having fun on the broadcast. And I think overall it made him a better broadcaster for it. And now he's big time now. He was on Barstool the other week for one of his calls, and I'm happy for the kid. But back to the Tequila game. In 2019, we were playing the Nashville Silver Knights, and the score early in the game, it was like a quick 1-2-3 inning for the first 3 innings of the game. And Maz had said on the broadcast, oh, it looks like this is going to be a quick one tonight, And of course, everyone knows if you're a broadcaster, you don't say things like that because it turns out to be the complete opposite. Sure enough, in the 7th inning, 8th inning, the score is 17-10 and we're losing. It's a football score. Like it looked like we were going into the third quarter of a Holy Cross football game. And we're down 17-10. And it was I'm pretty sure that night we broke our attendance record. We broke it later on in the season after that, but that was an attendance record. We had like 5-something thousand people in the crowd that night. And they're just sitting here watching the Bravehearts get their doors blown off. And, we scored early, and then after that, Nashville just took over. And so in the 8th inning, we're like, listen, these fans are great. They're awesome. They're still into the game. We need to do something that's going to get them involved and something that they're going to remember. And of course, we had our regular promotions, our table talk pie eating contest and all that other stuff. But it was like, let's do something that they're going to remember. And so we start playing Tequila. It was our music guy, Ryan McConville, who started playing the song. And I'm not honestly even sure if it was me, if it was Dave, or if it was someone that called out, hey, let's just keep playing this song, and Dave's going to do his dances, and he's going to stop when the music stops, and then we're going to continue to play the song. And it was originally just Dave. And as the music continued to play, we noticed that there was more and more kids doing the dance. And so someone made the call that we need to get 2 or 3 interns down and start dancing with these kids. And so sure enough, more kids are getting involved, and there's probably 25 kids with now our old promotions director at the time, Eric Benoit. He's dancing in a banana suit now because he is the king of professional, but I don't take myself too seriously. Like that kid, when he is on the clock, when he is working, he's the most professional kid I've seen. When he needs to not take himself too seriously, he dresses up in a banana suit and starts dancing. So, excuse me. So he starts dancing. We have a group of 25 kids dancing. And before you know it, behind home plate, there's just an all-out dance party going on. And it happened so quick in a matter of probably 5 to 10 minutes. And as we're dancing, there's 2 pitching changes. There's like 3 walks in the inning. There's a double. There's another hit that scores a run. And it's 17-14, 17-15. We're putting up 4 or 5 runs like it's nothing. And we're like, oh my God, we might win this game. And I'm broadcasting the game at the time, so I'm dumbfounded by everything that's going on. Our producer starts dancing. Our fan assistance person starts dancing. We have like 6 staff members dancing. We have 40-something people in the crowd dancing. And I'm in the broadcast booth dancing as well. Because, again, can't take yourself too seriously. You got to do what you got to do. So we end up losing the game 17-16. We still put up 6 runs. It was kind of a very anticlimactic finish. But when the game got over, I mean, there were still probably 3,000-4,000, almost maybe even 5,000 people still left in the stands because they saw it, they wanted to get into it, and they were loving it. And even though we lost the game, and even though we were down 17-10, people came up to us and they were like, this was so awesome. This was so great. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for, giving us this entertainment value. And it was great. And we talked about it. And we always said that, we wanted to bring it back. So this year, we had a plan to bring it back. We wanted to make something big out of it opening night. And then, of course, just as 7 or 8 games have happened this year, we got rained out, in the 3rd inning, which we're making up tonight. And so we really didn't get a chance to do it. But we decided to kind of make it almost an every game thing, where anytime we were down late in the game, we would throw the tequila on, and you guys know the drill. And we'd go from there. So this season, when we played Nashua, we were down, I think it was, at this point, 6-1 or 7-1 or something. And again, we had a decent sized crowd, and we were just flat the entire night. The first 3-4 innings, the team was flat. And one thing that Dave preaches every orientation for all the new workers is that there's some nights that we're going to be flat, and there's some nights that the team's going to be flat, And for those nights that the team's flat, we have to bring them up. For the night that maybe we're having an off day, maybe I'm having an off day, that's when the team steps up, because if the staff is having kind of an off day, well, guess what? If the team's up 10-0, then the fans are going to have a good time. If the team's down 10-0, it's kind of our responsibility to be like, hey, who cares about the score? We're going to have a good time. And you're going to not regret the fact that you're here, and you're going to want to come back, and you're not going to care if the score is 10-0. You're going to want to come back because it's going to be a fun time, and we're going to show you how to have fun. So they load the bases. And this is a little bit of an inside story here. So Dave was actually not present in the press box at the time. He had another priority with, I think it was a sponsor or something, where he was not actually on the field at the time. And I was producing the broadcast, and it was 7-1, and we were down, and they had loaded the bases with nobody out. And I grabbed the radio, because that's how we communicate, within the ballpark. And I was calling for Dave. He wasn't there. And I was basically like, let's do the tequila right now. Let's just get into it, because we usually do it to start the inning, And I was like, let's just do it right now. And Dave wasn't there. And I was like, all right, well, I'm making the executive call. We're doing tequila. Let's just get as many people out there as we can. Let's do it. And we did it. We started it, and everything just kind of blew up again. And of course, it was against Nashua. And we scored. We ended up taking the lead. Randy Flores steals home. It was like, pretty sure it's probably the first time anyone has stole home in Bravehearts history. Like, you don't see that happen often. So Randy stole home. The crowd's going nuts. There was 2 pitching changes again, and we end up winning the game. So it doesn't happen all the time when we do the tequila rally, but it's one of those things where we called it out, we made it work, and it's a fun time for the staff. And I think that really defines how good of a Braveheart you can be, is if you can get up and you can dance like an idiot and give the fans something to look forward to, and at the same time still do your job and act in a professional manner after the fact, then you're going to be a good Braveheart. And I think that's kind of what we look for when we look for new people to join the organization.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to work all the time, because you guys are, if it works twice, then that gives the fans something to hope for, and it keeps them in it even when it doesn't work, because they're dancing and having fun.
Right. And I think that that's the whole goal of the Bravehearts is, it's all about fun. It's not about who wins or loses. And the first year that I worked for the team, I was such a hardcore fan, because I was like, this is so cool. Like, I'm working for a team. Like, and now it's like, do I care if they win? Yeah. Do I want them to win? Yeah. But like, if I see 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people in the stands smiling, I don't care if the score's 10-0 and we're losing. Like, it's all about the fans. And I've kind of brought that over to everywhere else where I've worked, where it's like, the one thing I missed during COVID, and the one thing everyone missed, was the fans. But I mean, to be able to go back, I worked the Bruins playoff games this year, and just to see like 18,000 people back in the crowd was the best feeling in the world. I tell people, when I worked that first game where they allowed 100% capacity in the Garden and the national anthem played, and like I caught myself like almost crying, to the point where I'm like, oh my God, like I'm so happy to be back. Like, this is so cool. And it's like, you miss that, and you don't realize how much you miss it until it's gone. But to have all, like, just a packed house anywhere you're at, whether it's the Bravehearts, the Bruins, the Celtics, anything like that, just to see a packed house and people having a blast, it's awesome.
Yeah, and we'll continue talking about the fans with this next question. The Bravehearts do so much for the fans, so much for the community, as do many teams around the league. Just last week, you guys wore your autism awareness jerseys, which were amazing to look at too. And you also donated drawstring bags to children with type 1 diabetes via the UMass Memorial Medical Center. I personally have to thank Dave and the Credence for that, because, I've had diabetes almost my whole life, and those little things like the drawstring bags are huge. So thanks to Credence and Dave Peterson for that. How much pride does your ball club take in giving back to the community?
Yeah, and I to answer your question, I think that if we didn't take pride in giving back to the community, we wouldn't exist. If we didn't give back to the community, we wouldn't exist, because that's what drives us, and that's why we are who we are. And I think, again, that I've taken so much of that out of my career from the Bravehearts, because it's like, this is a community. And I said it, I was on the radio yesterday, Unity Radio, 97.9 in Worcester. And that's basically what I said was, this is my summer home. This is my summer family. And that extends beyond the staff. That goes to the fans. There's so many season ticket holders now that I've seen and I've known for 4 or 5 years that I come up to during the game. And it's like, it's almost like that's my cousin, and it's just like a normal season ticket holder for the Bravehearts. But it's awesome, to be able to go in the community and do all these things, and to go to these community events in Worcester with the mascot and see a 5-year-old kid just amazed at the fact there's this big furry lion coming up to him or her, giving a hug to them, is awesome. And all these different things, whether it's the autism awareness jerseys, and July 24th, we have the Tech Together jerseys, anything like that. The Friday Night Bright Be the Match jerseys are just, the jerseys are a small part of it, but it's all of these different organizations. And, especially with the Bravehearts, I've kind of been able to tap into every department. And one thing that I've really enjoyed is, group outings, group sales, working with big groups. When they come to you and it's a group of 200-300 people from an organization, whether that be a business or a nonprofit or anything like that, and they say, like, you made a difference to not only me, but to 200-300 other people in this ballpark, like, it's the best feeling in the world, And some of the big organizations, you don't get a chance to see all of that. But, something like the Bravehearts, it's like the proof is in the pudding, and it's in the name, just Bravehearts in general, why we're named the Bravehearts, just everything about the organization. I think the community, it's such a big time part of our team. And our team is, we're a baseball team, but above all, we're kind of just a member of the community. We're in the off season. It doesn't stop. It's not like we're like, oh, here comes the off season, time to relax. It's like, we have a pen pal club. We have the summer camps along with that. We have Before the season, we had the after school program. So anything like that, to be able to be ingrained in the community is such a big part of Worcester.
Yeah, and it's such a big part of all these teams, and it's been great to see everybody working with their communities to try and improve them, and it's been great. So, over your years in the FCBL, what do you think has changed the most in your mind?
Oh man. I think every year it's just grown so much. Where my first year where I worked there, I look back at the broadcast and we were on YouTube live and the quality wasn't great and it was like grainy. It was a grainy camera. And even the other broadcasts around the league, I'm not even sure if every team had a broadcast. And if it was a broadcast, I'm not sure if it was, working every game. Where now it's like we all have, the Bloom technology, which is great. And we're all able to see that. So being on the broadcast side, I think that's the first thing I noticed. But the talent has been ridiculous. I mean, you look around the Futures League and what we've been able to see and the amount of Division I talent and the amount of, lower Division II, Division III, but how great those guys have been. And, the name I always come to mind is Nick Martin, who is a Division III guy. He's a local guy. And I remember being underneath the tent and having a conversation in 2018, a year before Nick Martin joined the team, with his head coach from Shrewsbury. And he basically told me and Dave Peterson, Nick Martin's going to be a Braveheart. And he's going to be one of the best decisions that you guys make that year. Sure enough, in 2019, he's one of the best guys on the team and basically bumps us to a championship in 2019. So you have your great Division I talent. We got 2 Vanderbilt guys this year. We got a couple Dayton kids. There's a bunch of Kansas State kids around the league. So you got your high upper echelon of Division I talent, but your Division II, your Division III guys are just as talented and they're competing. And I think that's what's so cool about the Futures League is how much baseball has grown in New England, where, when I started in 2017, it was like, oh, you want to find good baseball, either go down to the Cape or go down south, because you're not going to find it in central Massachusetts, or at least, the talent that is down south and in the Cape. And now I think it's, it's competing right there. It's right up there with any other baseball league, baseball program, collegiately that there is. So I think it's definitely, last year was huge. Just the fact that we played. And I think these kids who maybe were going elsewhere, whether that be in the Northwoods League, the Cape League, NECBL, whatever it is, they joined the Futures League last summer and they were like, wow, this is great. And then they go and tell their teammates. And then before you know it, there's a pipeline there. The Bravehearts had that with St. Leo for a little bit. Now with Vanderbilt, where these kids are joining from these big schools and they're telling their teammates, hey, look, it's great playing here. Last year, there's a reason we had 17 returners to start the year, because so many people were like, hey, go down and play for the Bravehearts. It's a great time. They treat us well. And, and I think that that's a big thing too, where we have to, as an organization, we want not only our fans to, kind of love being at the Bravehearts, but the players as well, obviously.
Before we get back to our interview with Donny Porcaro, we want to share a message from our friends at On Demand Storage. Are you tired of living in clutter? Do you need more space around your home or office? Are you sick of visiting your self-storage unit? Does your business need a way to securely and conveniently store excess materials? On Demand Storage will pick up your items directly from your location and put them in storage for you. When you want something put back, give us a call and we can deliver it back right away. We bring convenience to the outdated self-storage process. Visit ondemandStorage.com and submit an inquiry. During sign-up, mention the Futures League and receive 50% off your storage pickup. Once again, that's ondemandStorage, all one word, .com. We now return to our interview with Donny Porcaro.
Yeah, so transitioning a little more to your personal side. This isn't the first time, actually, you and I have worked together, as you were the host of the Don and DeAngelis sports talk show at Suffolk. Once upon a time, it was number one, and then someone came and swooped in and took that from you. But do you prefer the sports talk side or being in the booth and broadcasting a game?
Honestly, I prefer the sports talk side, because I was someone that loved to give takes about anything. And I'm someone that I'll give a take about anything. I mean, last night in the press box, when we were working the Legion games, we were talking about conspiracy theories and, what I had a take about a movie that I think is a conspiracy theory, but whatever, I'm not going to get into it on here, but borderline anything, any conversation I can give you a take for. And I think that that's what made the radio show so fun, was the fact that I was able to just talk about whatever I wanted and just give a 20-minute take on something and go on a rant and just be like, hey, this is what I think of it. Here's why. And in 2 weeks, it's going to be proven why I'm right. And sometimes I'd be right. Other times I'd be dead wrong. In 2018, I said the Pats were going to be eliminated in the first round and they won the Super Bowl. So I've had some bad takes over the years, but yeah. And as far as the broadcast side, it is fun. And I think that especially now when I have such a greater appreciation of the players and the league, I think that's why the NESN games are going to be so fun, because I'm going to be able to tell a story where when I first went into broadcast, I didn't really understand the fact that not only are you telling what's happening, but you're basically telling a story, whether you're on play-by-play for radio or whether you're on play-by-play television, where you don't have to be as descriptive. You're still kind of telling the story of the game. And with the NESN games for the Futures League, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a lot of the history of the Worcester Bravehearts, the history of the Pittsfield Suns and Wacona Park, even though we're not playing there, and the history of Fitton Field, history of the Futures League, stuff like that. So I do kind of enjoy it and have a greater appreciation of things like that. But as far as my personal life and what I enjoy, the radio side is great. And, even the podcast, I'm sure we'll get into that. But that was something that I think was really special because I talked for so long in my life, and I've had so many of, the radio shows where I was the host, where I think it was good it's always fun to listen to what other people have to say. And the NESN broadcasts last year were another great example of that, because we had some great guests, whether it be Mike Gambino, the BC head coach, Joe Paolucci, the league commish, anything like that. Just being able to hear their stories and why they enjoy the Futures League was also really cool.
You just segued right into the podcast question.
Yep. Yeah, I was going to say, listening to yourself, yeah, you certainly did that a lot on the Sidelines with Don Porcaro podcast. What motivated you to start that podcast, and what was it like to have so many incredible guests come on and share their stories?
Yeah, the On the Sidelines podcast is something that, I miss. I haven't had an episode in 2 months because I've been so, intertwined with baseball over the last, I literally haven't had a day where I wasn't working a baseball game in like 2 months. So it's been kind of crazy. So I had to kind of draw back on the first season, and season 2 will get started once the baseball season ends. But I remember it was a conversation I was having actually with your former co-host, Matt Tilly. So I'll shout him out a little bit. And we were talking about different things we wanted to do during COVID. And I remember the one thing when we had no sports was I wanted to kind of make a difference in an industry that, a lot of people are trying to make a difference in. And at the time, there was no sports. And I knew that there was nothing I could do on the field, on the court, but maybe there was something I could do kind of off it. And I remember talking to Dave. I was talking to, I'll shout another guy out, Jacques Lambert, who I worked with in 2018. And I've worked with him on a plethora of different projects. He's been another one of my mentors. And talking to these guys who have so many great stories. You have a conversation with Dave for an hour, he can tell you just so many stories about not only the Bravehearts, but just any career in sports. Same with Jocks, who was actually, he was Billy Ray Cyrus's manager for like 3 years, to give you a little bit of perspective as to what he's done in the entertainment industry. So listening to guys like that tell their stories, and the stories that I have had, being only 22 years old, I've had just a bunch of stories in the industry. So I figured that everyone else who works it probably has similar stories. And so I started the On the Sidelines podcast, which is basically a podcast having people from within the industry come on and tell the stories of how they got hired, where they're working, and what they do, and to kind of give advice to people like us who are young and want to get into the industry. And it was a little selfish because, I wanted connections, and I felt that was a great way to make a connection and be like, hey, come on my podcast. But also because I was front and center, and it felt like I was a student with a college student with a guest speaker, a guest lecturer, because that's basically what it was. Is I can ask these big people in the industry any questions I want about sports and kind of get all my questions answered to get a better understanding of the industry. And some of the guests that came on were just so awesome and told some great stories. I remember one of my old Suffolk professors who I had on, Frank Arizeri, he talked about how he used to work for the University of Florida, and he, during the Tebow years, and how he had to give Tim Tebow separate finals on separate days because the press and the media would try to come in and take pictures of him like taking the tests. So it was like weird things like that. But also you get your actual your entertainment side of stories, the fun stories, but you also get your legitimate people talking about, what they do in the industry. Pete Sachs from the New York Mets came on, and he gave a great in-depth conversation, a great in-depth look at inside sales for the New York Mets and what he did and the deals that he closed and how he kind of worked around them. Marty Mulford from the Columbus Blue Jackets, vice president of ticket sales, I had him on, and he was another great person that kind of went inside and gave you an inside look at his sales department and how he runs the organization and how he's able to kind of do his job. So the guests have been great. I can just go on and on about all the amazing guests that I've had, including Dave and Jocks. Both of them were episodes 2 and 3 right off the bat, my first 2 guests. But just everyone around those organizations that were so awesome that they just decided they did want to come on because, you get busy with work. And so to take an hour out of your busy day to talk to some random kid who lives, at some points all the way on the other side of the country, and Backamus, she's from Seattle. So she had no business being like, oh yeah, I'll just take this random podcast in Massachusetts, but she did. And she was awesome. And she gave some great inside stories about sports in Seattle. So I think it's great to get an inside look at all of the different people within the area. And if I can help one person, break into the sports industry by listening to that podcast. And when I say me personally help, I kind of mean my guests, but at the same time, like I said, I've talked for so many years. So I figured I could hand the mic off to someone else and let them tell their side of the story.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, the talking continues on Saturday when you are the play-by-play announcer for NESN. Once again, that's the 4 Saturdays in July. So really excited for those. But in the meantime, we're going to get to our final segment now. It's called Quick Hits. It's presented by Zephyr, the official on-field hat of the Futures League. Zephyr, high quality and innovative design since 1993. Donnie, we know you've been waiting for these. We can't wait to lay them on you. So let's get started here. Who has been your favorite press box teammate over your years with the Bravehearts?
Oh, man. There's going to be like 4 different people that are going to be upset at me if I don't choose the right one here. But let me I'll give you a quick rundown of some of the guys that I've loved to work with. It starts off with J.R. Ciamoto, who was my press box teammate from 2017, my first year, to I want to say 2020. He skipped 2019. He was 2017, 2018. He came back for 2020. And he was the first person I ever did a broadcast with. He was the play-by-play. I was the caller. That was a game that I filled in for Bob LaBelle, our former announcer, and it was me and JR. And that kid, I promise you, is the hardest working kid I've seen run through this staff. Last year, he came back to help with us during COVID, was my right-hand man for the broadcast, ended up basically being the production assistant for all the broadcasts. And I watched that kid from Doyle Field, because we had to play at Doyle Field last year, carry a 10-foot ladder from the locker room, which is located behind right field, to the home plate dugout every single game, so we could have a camera up on the fence. Just because he was there, he did it right away. And it was small things like that, So JR was awesome, been my right-hand man for years. One of my favorite broadcast partners too. I feel like me and him really clicked in the booth because both of us didn't really take ourselves too seriously in the booth, so it was a lot of joking, a lot of fun times up there. Anthony Mazzini is another great one. He's with the Florence Alls right now. So he's working, he's broadcasting professional baseball, which is awesome. I'm so happy for that kid. And then Paul Lambert, this year, Paul selected to the All-Star game as a broadcaster this year, well deserving of it. He's been one of the teammates of mine for 4 years now as well. So between those 3 guys in the press box, I think Maz, Paul, and JR, who I've all worked with for multiple years, those guys are the best.
Yeah, for sure. Those are all great guys. And then how about favorite ballpark that you've attended as a fan?
Favorite ballpark I've attended as a fan. I'm a Red Sox fan, so this is going to be tough, but the old Yankee Stadium was just awesome. The history of that park as well. Fenway is kind of the easy answer. I've been there so many times, but the old Yankee Stadium, I went when I was 9 years old, and I'll tell you a story. It's a personal bias because I went to a Yankees and Blue Jays game, and this has a Bravehearts tie-in. I went to a Yankees Blue Jays game. Now, my mom grew up with Mariano Ricciardi's dad, JP, who was the GM at the time of the Toronto Blue Jays. And so we went to a Yankees game, myself and my mom, and JP gave us tickets right behind the Blue Jays dugout. And me and Mariano were actually really good friends at the time because we went to Worcester Academy summer camp together. So it's kind of one big connection. And JP said, here's some tickets right behind home plate. And so in the, fourth or fifth inning of the game, it was Blue Jays Yankees. Vernon Wells catches a fly ball to end the inning. And we're probably 3 rows back. And he tosses the ball up to end the inning, like, they normally do when they're going back to the dugout. And as he tosses the ball up, I'm 9 or 10 years old. I dive into the next stand and I catch the ball diving to the next stand. And it was number 9 on ESPN's top 10 plays when I was 9 years old. I have the clip of it. So as a 9-year-old, I made ESPN's top 10 plays because I dove in front of a row in front of me and caught a ball. And that's all thanks to, of course, Bravehearts legend Mariano Ricciardi's father. So it all kind of tied in. But yeah, I would say that Yankee Stadium, the old Yankee Stadium, was probably my favorite park. A, because of the bias, and B, because I think it's just a great park altogether.
And that's a pretty good transition to go from. That sounds like a bucket list item, but how about a sports stadium or sporting event that's on your bucket list?
Sports. Oh, I got a guest here popping in.
Just wanted
to. What's up, Dave?
There you go.
So there you go. Dave Peterson makes an appearance on the podcast. That's great. Bucket list item. All right. I was prepared for this question because I got 3 for you. The first one is WrestleMania. I was a huge wrestling guy. I was a huge WWE fan from the time I was younger. I went to one that they had in the DCU Center where Ozzy Osbourne was actually there for that. I don't know if you guys are wrestling fans, if you remember anything like that, but I was always a big wrestling guy, and WrestleMania has always been my number one thing on the bucket list, which everyone kind of thinks is weird because, not many 20-something-year-olds like WWE. It's more like a kid's thing, but I love the entertainment value of it. So the WrestleMania, I don't really watch it as much now, but the actual pay-per-view WrestleMania, I think would be sick to go to. My number 2, obviously the Super Bowl. I think that's just a bucket list item. And I mean, I've been to the NHL finals. I've been to, I haven't been to an NBA finals. I've been to the NBA Eastern Conference finals, but
those have been boring anyways.
Yeah, well, it's not the final yet, so I'll be satisfied when I get to an NBA finals and maybe the team that I'm either rooting for and or working for wins. Then I'll be excited for that one. But the third one is the Nathan's hot dog eating contest on the 4th of July, because I remember from 2017 on, me and JR, we used to watch that because we used to always have games on the 4th of July, and we used to have this big barbecue cookout. So 2017, 2018, 2019, we played the hot dog eating contest audio over the loudspeakers pregame because we had a 1:00 game or 2:00 game, whatever it was. And we would watch it on my laptop, which was streamed to ESPN. So that was something that I always want to go to the 4th of July. I'm going to make that happen one 4th of July. Hopefully one that I'm not working a baseball game, because that's been kind of the deal for the last 5 years for me. So hopefully when I'm not working a baseball game on the 4th of July, I'll head out to Staten Island to see the hot dog eating contest.
And you mentioned favorite big league team earlier. So how about favorite big league player, whether it's current or historical?
This one, I got to go obvious. It's David Ortiz. I mean, the guy, first of all, whenever I'm judging a player, going back to the radio segments, talking about my radio takes, I'm a big winner guy. If you're a winner, then you're okay in my book. And if you're a loser, I don't have time for you. So when it comes to David Ortiz, I mean, you're talking about the greatest clutch hitter in the history of baseball. After the Boston bombings, when he comes out and he just gives that huge speech, it's like you get chills just thinking about it. I have a flag in my room of him raising his fist after he gives the speech and says, this is my beeping city. And so he's just my favorite player of all time. I grew up watching him. When I was in first grade, when they won in 2004, I convinced my mom to stay up for those games till 1:00 in the morning, and I didn't fall asleep. And I've never met another 6 or 7 year old that can stay up till 1:00 in the morning. But I was literally sneaking the game into my television, watching it when I was like 7 years old, because I just loved the Red Sox so much that year, and I wanted them to beat the Yankees and all that other stuff. So it's an obvious choice. It's David Ortiz.
Yeah, can't go wrong there. So besides Tequila, what would be your walk-up song if you're coming into the booth or onto the field or pulling the tarp?
Oh man, walk-up song. This is a tough one. If I'm a pitcher, I'm probably, which I wasn't, but I feel like you get a longer walk-up song. I'm probably gonna go Crazy Train, just because it's, you know, it's one of those songs. It's like you're ready to go right off the bat. Or The Game by Motorhead, which is Triple H's WWE Superstar walk-up song when he walks out into the ring. Any type of WWE wrestling song, I feel like is just a sick walk-up. And that's probably something I would go with if I was a pitcher. But anything, I think WWE would be a great walk-up song. The Stone Cold Steve Austin song right off the bat, it's just like the glass shattering. It goes right into it. So something like that. I feel like they always make the best walk-up songs.
Yeah, with the fans in mind too, because they love all those.
Yeah, like the John Cena music. If you ever play that in the stadium, the fans go nuts. It's that. I've learned that it's either the John Cena music where the kids go nuts, or if you play the SpongeBob theme song, you get all the kids that say, when it's like, "Are you ready, kids?" And you just have 3,000 little kids screaming, "Aye, aye, Captain." We had that happen during one of our BIE days in 2019. It's the greatest thing in the world. We'll do that during the NESN game, so listen up for it.
Absolutely. So this one's geared towards the NESN game too, or when you're broadcasting a game in general. Any superstitions before or during the broadcast?
Not really. I'm someone that doesn't really have many superstitions. I used to when I played baseball a little bit, but for the most part, it's just kind of get out there, do your thing, and, kind of forget the fact you're on TV, because, some people just get really, shook by the fact that they're on TV. But like I said, I think that it does help me out that I've been in front of 18,000 people, and, I've had things go wrong, especially with the Celtics before COVID, that position where it was basically the live events position, where you have a headset and you have, 90 seconds to tell the dunk team or the dance team or anything like that to get off the court. And if we're not going overtime, I'll tell a little story here. But the thing that really, got me to like, oh crap, like I'm really just going out and doing this was they were playing the Rockets, the Celtics were. And this was when Jaylen Brown hit like a game-winning three-pointer. Jason Tatum missed the free throw, and Jaylen Brown hit the game-winning three, and it went into overtime. Now, usually what happens is we have a dance team run onto the court, and if you've ever been to a Celtics game, they have those big banners, and the first one says, like, let's, the second one says go, and then it says Celtics, and they pull the banners from the bottom. Now, what you don't see is there is someone that is underneath the banner with a headset in, telling all the people when to get off the court, when to get on the court. And in the live events industry, there's something called a hot timeout, which is basically, or a red hat, they call it sometimes, which is basically an unplanned timeout. So you have your typical, 4 minutes after the game starts, you have your first planned timeout, the 8-minute mark, the 4-minute mark, whatever the case may be, whatever sport it is, you have your planned timeouts. And then especially in a sport like basketball, where you have to fill the final 2 minutes, you have your unplanned timeouts. And this was obviously the last second of the game. It's an unplanned timeout. And so Jaylen Brown hits the 3-point shot, and the dancers and Lucky and the mascot run onto the court. And as this is happening, the referees now have to review the play of whether or not it was a good 3-pointer, which means that they can't be on the court. And the person who I was working with was underneath the banner, but it was so loud in the garden because everyone was just going absolutely crazy that he couldn't hear in his headset that we were trying to get off the court to get them to review it. And so I'm now trying to run on the court to tell them that they have to go in and they have to, get off the court basically. And I bump into someone as I'm running onto the court, and I look up like this, and it's Tracy McGrady, who's 6'7", who is just standing right over me. And I'm basically, before that, I almost had to be like, hey, get out of the way. And I bumped into him and realized this guy was 6'7". So I wasn't going to say anything that was going to upset him in any way. And on my way to court, I run into Tracy McGrady, and I had to literally go on the court and basically communicate from them, wave them down that they had to get off the court because it was so loud in there that you couldn't hear it. So when you have something like that and you have people from upper management, telling you have to get off the court, you have to do it right now, doing a NESN game kind of seems a little bit easier. So I'm very lucky that I was kind of put in that spot where I had those experiences to kind of make this seem a little easier. But at the same time, you still get your pregame nerves. So I'm sure from game starts at 12. I'm sure from like 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, I'll be shaking a little bit. And then once the game starts, we'll be good to go.
Yeah. And you won't need to try to have Tracy McGrady hear you all the way up there.
Exactly. I'm sure yelling wouldn't even have done much considering he's probably 2 feet taller than me. So.
All right. And last question of our quick hit segment presented by Zephyr. What's your favorite all-time baseball memory?
Ooh, favorite all-time baseball memory. All right, I'll give you baseball and I'll give you Bravehearts. Baseball was I gave you a story of the top 10 play. That was probably my favorite baseball memory. But
that's up there.
Yeah, it's definitely got to be up there. But my first game when I went to Suffolk, you know what? Scratch that. When the Red Sox won in 2004, I remember telling my mom tells me this all the time. When the documentary came out of the 4 days in October, I'm sure you guys have both seen it, right? 4 days in October. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Anyone in New England's basically seen that documentary.
Yeah.
And so, they show cuts of people at the bar, they show like cask and flag and they're all celebrating. They're all at the bar. And I was 7 years old. And I told my mom, I want to be at a bar when the Red Sox win the World Series. Now, usually that's probably concerning for a mother that their 7-year-old says, I want to be at a bar drinking and watching the Red Sox win the World Series. But obviously it kind of made more sense just because I was a diehard Sox fan at the time. And so I said to my mom, whenever they go back to the World Series, I need to be at a bar. I need to watch it. I need to be in that atmosphere because that was just something I always kind of looked up to. And 2018, they were obviously playing the Dodgers on the road, and it was a Sunday. And I remember it was me and 6 of my buddies, and we kind of said, "Hey, what are we doing for the game tonight?" All right, Cask and Flagon, which is right across the street. Now they're on the road, so the best place to watch it in Boston was a bar. You couldn't get tickets anywhere, and this was the final game, Game 5, and I went with 5 of my buddies to Cask and Flagon. We got there wicked early to make sure we got seats. And I remember the Patriots were playing, I think it was the Vikings during that Sunday game, whatever it was. And we convinced one of my other friends to go. And we basically convinced him by saying whenever he got married and had children, we were going to tell his children that he was the only one that didn't attend this event while everyone else celebrated and rioted in the streets of Boston. So we convinced one of my other buddies to go. There was 6 of us. We get to Cask and Flagon. And the atmosphere was just exactly how I pictured it. It was straight up a scene from 4 days in October. Mookie Betts hit a home run. The whole bar went ballistic. It was just so cool, the whole atmosphere. And it was funny because I called my mom in the bar and I was like, hey, I'm living out the dream that I told you I was going to live out when I was 7 years old. Now, 2 very different dreams, being on NESN and then being at a bar, but they all kind of circled around Red Sox baseball. So it was just really cool. And then after that, I had a fever pitch moment where I got interviewed for Channel 7. I think it was Channel 5, Channel 7. But we were in the middle of the streets of Boston, and one of the reporters come up to me, and I have a video of me screaming into the camera saying, let's go Sox, being an idiot, of course. And but it was just so funny to watch it. And one of my professors during the time at Suffolk came up to me the next day because he had worked at Channel 7, Mike Fahey. And he was like, hey, I saw your clip on the news yesterday. And I was like, yeah, that happened. I was very excited the Red Sox won the World Series. But it was just a blast. And that was something that kind of, was really, really a favorite memory of mine for the favorite baseball memory. Favorite Bravehearts memory. Tequila's up there. Bravehearts winning in 2019, being in Bristol for that was up there. And then in 2017, we had a 3-way tiebreaker to see who was going to go into the playoffs. And it was a second game of doubleheader. And basically it was me, And one of my coworkers, Drew Goldstein, who went down the list we actually texted Josh Cummins. Josh will remember this story. And we texted him asking what the second or third tiebreaker was. And he told us, and we went through the list. First tiebreaker, still a tie. It was like us and Martha. It was us, Martha's Vineyard, and I think Bristol at the time. And first tiebreaker, still tied. Second tiebreaker, we eliminated Bristol or whatever it was. So it was like between us and Martha's Vineyard. And the third tiebreaker was like wins against potential playoff or wins against playoff teams or whatever it was. So we had to go down the list of each schedule and take our records against playoff teams. Now, mind you, Bristol still could have been in. So we had to do our record as if Bristol made it and do our record as if Martha's Vineyard made it and do our record as if Nashville made it. So we sat here for like 5 innings trying to figure out who got the final tiebreaker if we were to win the next game. And we figured out that if we beat Pittsfield that next day, we would get the tiebreaker. And of course, this was all a bunch of math, which was like my worst subject anyways. But I was like, nope, I guarantee you I'm right. And we had to send the press release out. And I told my assistant GM, I was basically like, look, I am 100% right. I know I'm right. I know I did the math correctly. You could fire me if we're wrong. I put it in the press release. If we win tomorrow, we're in the playoffs. And the next day, we beat Pittsfield. We're in the playoffs. There was still a question. They went back to me. They said, do you have that sheet with all the math on it? And I pull out this crinkled up piece of paper that had the sheet explaining who made the playoffs. If whatever happened. It checked out. We made the playoffs, and we went to the championship that year, as we do every year. Or have done every year. I don't want to jinx anything this year, but yeah, and that was kind of cool because it was like, oh, for once in my life, my math actually checked out, and it helped. So yeah, that was a pretty cool Bravehearts moment for me, and that was my first year.
Yeah, that's awesome. And those are two incredible memories. And obviously we were part of the fanship for the 2018 World Series as well. So that's awesome. Well, Donnie, that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck with everything. And we can't wait to see you on NESN. Again, that's the next 4 Saturdays of July on NESN, Futures League Baseball, and at Hanover Insurance Park all season long.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. You guys do an absolutely great job. I listen to every episode. To watch this podcast grow as well has been great. So you guys make know that, Johnny, you've been great since you got here. So keep up the good work, guys.
Yeah, really appreciate that. Thanks to all the listeners, and including you.
And this has been episode 18 of season 3 of Back to the Futures, the official podcast of the Futures Collegiate Baseball League. We have new episodes coming out every Monday and Thursday. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast. We're streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And once again, be sure to tune into NESN starting this weekend. Johnny and Donnie will be on TV. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see everyone soon.